another collection of quarantine book.
I came back to working with epoxy for a little sample of mine because I really wanted to sculpt with it on the body, so I left it out to dry accidentally for a bit too long and it became too strong. I initially planned for it to be a bit more malleable, but I tested it out. Now I'm not thinking about it, and this little sample, which was not exactly successful, I can still reuse later on in accessories or some little details like buttons and whatnot.
I'm trying another experiment. From the time I was trying to make those trousers, which you've seen a million times by now, I accidentally messed up one of the trouser pant legs, and I am kind of left with a pleated long ass sheet of fabric with a print. So I was thinking of trying to play around with it on the body, because before that all of my tutors suggested that I try to utilize it and try to play around with it for some drapery. I'm also interested to see how the pleated fabric is going to perform when draped, because usually it creates some interesting lines and your eye gets drawn different directions because it is so dynamic and so interesting. So today is what I'm trying to focus on. I'm probably going to go to the bathroom where we have a large mirror.
Because I don't have a full-scale mannequin, this is my preferred way of working, so I'm just draping on myself, watching in the mirror, taking a video simultaneously, and then I play the video back, I do a bunch of screenshots, and then I print the thing out, only to stick it into my sketchbook, to trace it later on, to sketch beside it, considering little details that I liked, and this allows me to reflect on the shape and potentially give ideas for silhouette. Now that we have a digital submission, we are mostly working on a computer and my eyes are hurting, so I am showing you my front and back range plans, then look number 6, which I broke down into layers so that it will be a bit more clearer for me and for the tutors to see what I'm thinking of, and look number 5, broken into layers, because that would probably be a layered mesh garment with prints on individual layers and then gather it all together at the end.
I was looking through the drawers in this room and I found a little jacket from H&M project, and I wanted to essentially cut like a section out of it because I wanted to put it in my sketchbook as a reference for colour. In the beginning of my project, I was exploring the idea of having overlays over jackets. Now you can actually see what those tops look like. Before I couldn't show them to you because it was a bit too revealing. They're a bit small just because they are cutting off my body in different sections, but it could be interesting to see how they perform the jacket.
Understand what type you need if you didn't try them before. Yeah. So this is the question for me. And potentially we can discuss different types.
Yeah.
But in real life, when we come back,
First of all, of course, it has to be technical drawing.
I have a giant pile of papers lying in front of me every time I finish a Zoom tutorial. Today we were talking with our technician about technical drawings and technical specification sheets for factories and like different manufacturers. So I have this pile of papers which I just used out of leftover scraps from, I think, my foundation fashion illustrations, which were completely terrible, I might say so myself. Like, look, what the hell is this? So I don't think I've thrown any piece of paper after foundation and during foundation as well, so I'm reusing a lot of stuff. So like scraps of tracing paper which I just found lying around as quickly as I could. Those were from styling workshop we had with our tutor Xenia, whom we have not had a tutorial since I think level 4. So I think it's kind of productive in a sense. I think I'm going to be focusing a bit more on experimental samples because I've been missing those, and after looking at my range plans and the range plans of the girls, I found that I'm missing a bit of creativity element because my designs are, well, they are experimental enough, but I feel like they're a bit too commercial because this, even though this is quite difficult in construction and the way it is finished is not going to be done in a factory setting in some kind of Zara or something, because it is quite intricate, it's very delicate and everything, but I think I want something a bit more wow factor. Because my look number 6, which was initially expected to be quite creative, is quite simple, if I say that myself, because it is constructed out of quite simple elements. So I'm thinking of making something more creative, more theatrical, and I'm going to experiment on this little baby. This way I'm not going to waste too much fabric on my experiments, and I'm going to be able to achieve some kind of interesting shape if I succeed in my experiments.
I filmed a little tutorial for monoprinting on top of surfaces that you want to upcycle. In my case it was a tote bag, so if you're interested you can see it on my Instagram or in my TikTok.
I'm testing a reverse monoprinting after having printed a few photos of my group mates, because I'm currently working on a series of portraits of my group mates in different styles, and I've already done 3 and this is like a next series. I think Mila's is the most successful because it at least looks like a picture and all the rest are a little bit different. I mean, you can still see some resemblance and I think they're successful enough for me to post them, but I'm not sure how successful they are and if the girls are going to even see themselves in the photos.
I was almost cleaning up after my monoprint and I just decided to wash the roller off with a paper towel, and when I was doing it, it left an imprint of my hand on the paper towel, so I loved that experiment, but also it left a negative trace of my hand on the roller itself, so it just squished the whole roller across the paper, and I think that's the most beautiful thing I've ever done, honestly. Like, this is so amazing. I'm gonna frame it. I'm obsessed with it. This week I got a bunch of clips from the girls, so I'm very lucky in that sense, but Marsha is the first one to show her work. She was mostly focusing on working on the mannequin. She had 4 meters of fabric which she was continuously draping to get a new interesting shape for her garment, and because she moved to the countryside she brought all of her inspiration there, and now she has a bunch of different mood boards for every different look. She has a very interesting idea for her range plans in the collection in general, because she's showing her every look as a specific item that is interacting with the body. So I think she has plastic, she has clay, ropes, and 3 more things which I can't remember on the top of my mind, but the collection in general started from her research of shibari, so very body conscious technique. I think I'm definitely going to have an interview with Marsha as with the rest of the girls, because I definitely want to show you the work that they've been working on, not just my stuff that you can see on the channel, and I want to keep it as a diary for me to look back on in the future and remember what we've all been working on at that point. Next up is Mila, and this week she's been focusing on little details and embroidery that she could apply to her surfaces, and she was working on leather and I think felt florals. She developed a bunch of different prints which she wanted to 3-dimensionalize by adding a little bit of applique on top of them, and her research in general stems from the political situation in Russia in the 21st century at this point, and it's very interesting because she's looking at it in multiple different angles, and again she also has 6 different characters for each look, and they are all archetypal characters in Russian society. This is Marsha's collection. She is mostly focusing on surface design because she's now at home and she has a felting machine. That's what she's working on most of the time. She is blending a lot of different fabrics together by using a felting machine needles, which are essentially pulling bottom threads from the fabric to the top. Her collection, as we expected, is sort of about Russian history, about witchcraft, about multiple different angles that she took in the research. But it is very whimsical, and even though I just said that she's using plastic, it's sort of foresty at the same time. She found this very beautiful technique for blending plastic with dried florals, so that it is sort of trapping the florals in between plastic and fabric layers and leaving an impression of 3D flower, so like a ghostly floral effect, which is very beautiful. Last but not least is Anna. She is working with researching her heritage and Russian history from the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. She started the research by looking into her heritage and the fact that her great-grandfather owned a typography in Moscow. She's actually doing strictly mental, so she's the only person who's actually focusing on it, but she has a lot of deconstructed typography in her work, very sharp shoulders, very beautiful references for the past times. It's very beautiful what I've seen so far, and if you're interested, I'm going to leave all of the girls' Instagrams down below so you could actually check out the work in progress. Hope it was entertaining. Thank you for watching. See you next week.